Welcome back to Competition Everything Reading Analysis Branch Number 2, Lord of the Flies by William Golding, Part 1. As always, like, subscribe, and if you have any questions, you can visit our website at the link listed below, and we will try to respond as quickly as possible. Our next video will be posted on the website and YouTube channel, and as usual, let us know if you have any specific topic requests. If you live in the Memphis area and are interested in joining the team as an astronomy or biology specialist, or you know someone that would be interested, contact us by either of the ways listed below. And with that, we're going to start the first part of an analysis on William Golding's Lord of the Flies. So, humanity, innocence, and sanity, all three of these ideas are a major part in William Golding's novel. A group of young boys are stranded when a plane crashes on a remote island in the Pacific Ocean at what he describes as the dawn of the next World War. As time passes, Golding explores the habits of the human mind if civilization was torn away from them. Do they band together or fight for power like primitive civilizations? Golding explores both possibilities in his pivotal novel that sold millions of copies in multiple languages all over the world. Okay, so setting the stage for this dense novel, there are many hints dropped about the setting for this novel, but there's never an explicit declaration of when or where this book takes place. There are simple clues given, like a wild island in the Pacific at the dawn of the next World War, as I stated before, and planes and bombs are heard and seen overhead as the boys struggle to create a life on the island. About midway through the book, a dead parachuter does fall from what seems like a battle in the sky. Although the boys don't know, the reader can infer that there was a battle happening between two planes in the sky, and one of the pilots did die and fall onto the island. And Golding explores how he thinks the corrupt side of human nature, which he believes would always come out in dire situations, would impact young boys on an island if they were left alone for a long time without real authority. So before I got into the plot of this novel, I was actually going to walk through some of the characters with you first, because there's a lot of characters in the novel. As I said before, a group of boys, so about 20 to 25 boys are dropped on the island, although only about 15 of them are named, and only about 5 or 6 of them are spotlight characters in this book or have some sort of symbolism, so I'm going to go through those first. First we have Ralph. Ralph is arguably the main character in Lord of the Flies. He's the first boy described in Chapter 1 as being in good physical shape, handsome, intelligent, and he screams good leader material to the boys. And immediately this stands out to Piggy, another one of the boys who I will describe later. But basically, he's teased for being overweight and intelligent. He's rational, and the other boys don't think much of him at the time until Ralph begins to grow on him later. And after blowing the conch for the first time, Ralph is the symbol of unity that draws all the boys together. So right from the get-go, he's kind of their authority figure. They see him as someone who brought them all together in the first place. They're the reason that they got to this point. And even though Jack and Ralph agree to have an election, while the group of choir boys that Jack did land with, even though they dutifully vote for Jack, most of the boys would vote for Ralph, and Ralph is elected chief, and he begins to set rules in place. Ralph's only real opposition for having a strong opinion is Jack. And at the beginning, Jack and Ralph are very close. They have a friendship of being the most outgoing and seemingly intelligent boys in the group, and they're the most respected. But slowly over time, Jack becomes the most savage. He starts being very preoccupied with the idea of hunting, meat, killing, and blood. And as time also grows, the competitive tension between Jack and Ralph begins to swell, and they see that they're the only threat to each other's leadership. And as Jack succumbs to the primitive side of himself, Ralph becomes more and more connected to his old life as he wishes to hold on harder and harder, and this causes a lot of tension between the two main characters with very fiery personalities, which does cause a lot of problems later. So, onto Piggy. So, right from the beginning of the novel, Piggy is the most concerned about their situation. He handles it the most, I think, mature that anybody that age could handle a situation like that. He's worried about his asthma. He's worried about how they're going to get food, how they're going to get water, where they're going to go when it rains. And this kind of care and concern can either go one of two ways to like the reader or the even characters in the book. Like, I know a lot of my peers completely despise Piggy, and a lot of them also love him. They think that he is the voice of reason throughout the boys, and that if they didn't have him, they would have been done on the first day. But he does nag and whine a lot at Jack and Ralph, which does cause problems between Jack, who eventually strikes him across the face when he scolds him, and Jack tends to take a lot of his anger that was because of Ralph onto Piggy, because he knows that he cannot take out his anger on Ralph, because that would cause a lot more problems than if he just hit Piggy, who no one would defend, except for Simon. And Simon has been portrayed by many writers and literary analysts as the absolute good in Golding's novel. He stands for the beacon of hope and truth in the story. So when he does discover that the beast that the boys are after is not real and is merely a dead parachuter, as I mentioned before, when he is killed by the boys who brutally slaughtered him, the truth also dies with him, in a sense that when they killed him, they killed the knowledge that the beast was not real, and the beast, being a manifestation of their own fear, caused their fear to be even greater subconsciously, even though they wouldn't accept the fact that they were slowly becoming one to this island and it was taking over their psyche, and they didn't want to accept it. But when they did accidentally kill Simon, thinking he was the beast, convinced by Jack that he was the beast, all the good in the novel does go with him. And lastly, Roger does not play a crucial part in the plot itself, but Roger is a very symbolic character. There's a scene about, I would say, a third through the novel where Roger is throwing stones at one of the little ones, which is what they call the younger boys on the island, and he finds himself purposely missing the small boy because of his old ties to civilization. He still sees a child as something to be protected by parents, teachers, and police and authority figures. So he is missing on purpose when he's throwing rocks at this child, because he's still connected to his old life in which he feels morals. He feels that he needs to be kind to this little boy, and he knows that if he does hit him, there will be consequences, even if he could think more about it and say, hey, I'm on an island with all these other guys my age, would they care? But he doesn't think that way because he's still attached to his past life, which he also does take a pivotal turn, and when Jack goes savage, does go with him, and eventually brutally murders Piggy with a boulder. And in this way, Roger is actually the character that demonstrates the most change, from being tethered to his old civilization to now being the person that kills the voice of intelligence and reason on the island. And along with a lot of intricately thought out characters, there's also a lot of symbolism in Lord of the Flies, and I've brought out some of the four most obvious ones. Even though a lot of little things in the novel can be drawn to something that you can connect to a deeper meaning, I just pulled out the more obvious ones to talk about with you. The first is the conch, or the conch, depends on however you want to say it. The conch is a shell, basically, that Ralph blows through to unite all the boys. It makes a loud sound, and so all the boys come out from different parts on the island and meet as one, and this is how they start to create a band together. And so the conch originally symbolizes, like, unity and being one, and soon they establish a rule: whoever holds the conch has the right to speak, because boys keep interrupting each other. And this rule holds for like approximately 2 days because the boys start to get restless. Piggy starts taking advantage of this rule, not taking advantage, but he starts to really love this rule in a passionate way. Because no one ever listens to him, he can wave the conch around over his head and say, I have it, I have the conch, listen to me, it's my turn to talk, shut up. It says in the rules that I have the right to talk, and then Jack will be like, shut up. And then Ralph says to Jack, be nice to Piggy, but Piggy, listen to Jack. And so the conch slowly starts to lose its meaning, and under the same boulder that Piggy is crushed with, the conch is also shattered to pieces, which I think is a very important thing to think about, that Piggy and the conch die at the same time, per se, in the novel. And that's a very important aspect of the novel, because Piggy really was the only thing holding on to the power of the conch. And so slowly, as all this reason and intellectuality disappears from the island, the Lord of the Flies emerges, for which the novel is named after. The Lord of the Flies first appears in Simon's head as a voice after he sees a beheaded pig put on a stake by Jack's followers earlier in what Jack's Savage Revolution, when it was still developing, and he blacks out and he starts to hear a voice in his head telling him that you cannot hide from me. I am in the head of all men. And this it becomes pretty clear as the Lord of the Flies visits Simon in his head multiple times that the Lord of the Flies is just a mental manifestation of the boys' fear. And it's slowly creeping into the minds of the boys as Jack convinces them that the Lord of the Flies is this beast and they need to kill it, and that it takes many different forms, and Simon was the first form. And this was one of the aspects in which Jack is able to convince his followers to kill Simon, thinking that he's the beast. So something I already kind of touched on is the meaning behind Piggy and Simon's death. They not only represent a loss of a person, but losses of parts of all the other boys, civilization, and being labeled as the most intelligent character and the most absolute good character, Piggy and Simon are essentially what is holding the boys to sanity and their modern ways of surviving without killing and hurting and tactfully injuring each other for no reason. And when they're killed, all that innocence and rational thinking that they had holding on with them as a symbol and as a person, as a character in the story, always telling everyone to think twice, have hope, is this the best thing to do? It kind of leaves the boys alone without that rational piece, always whispering in their ear from behind, even if it did annoy them. And they do slowly fall into a downward spiral. And one of those things that does happen is Jack painting his face with paint. Mud, basically, to put on a mask to hide his ulterior personality and create a new one, a new savage one. He did this early in the book in order to catch his first pig, although it didn't have as much deep symbolism as the later times he does it, when he does do it, obviously, in which he hopes to block out his past personality and doesn't want to tarnish his old half that his parents would have loved, his teachers would have adored, the authority figures would have respected, and he just creates a new personality that can be savage, can kill, can hurt, can hunt, and slit the throat of a pig without the fear of bloodshed. Early in the book, it's determined that Jack has a horrible fear of bloodshed, and when he puts this mask on, he no longer has that fear because he just covers up everything with this mask, which a lot of the boys do, although not literally like Jack does with the mud and paint. And that is going to be it for part 1. Part 2 will be coming very soon and a little shorter, I promise. As always, leave a comment and ask any questions you might have. Thank you, and see you next time.